Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari 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 Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jaya Radha Kunj Bihari Radha Kunj Bihari Radhe
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 Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Haladeva Mai Subhadra Jaya Srinath Ji Jaya Bala Gopal Jaya Srinath Ji Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Hari Gaura Hari Bo Hari Bo Hari Bo Gaura Hari Bo Jai Hari Nam Sankirtana ki Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Nata Koti Vaishnavanda ki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam yena bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Sham He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindaveshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prachaline Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasavi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we read this verse. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. The translation is very sweet. It says, "O my dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the masters of the gopis and lover of Radharani. I offer my obeisance, respectful obeisances unto you. You are the friend of the distressed." It's very comforting and sweet. He's always our friend. So, we have been discussing now this final section of chapter 2 and the final section of the final section, which is Arjuna's inquiry. If one has achieved transcendental perfection, what does one do? How does one use their senses? And last week we spoke about that the senses can be easily swept away. What are the senses in this picture?
Horses.
The horses. Right? So horses are very strong, powerful, and they can run in any direction. Okay? And if the driver lets go of the ropes will not be able to restrain the horses. And those ropes in this picture represent
The mind.
the mind. So in 67, Krishna says, "As a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence." So it can carry away the mind and ultimately the intelligence. And when one of the senses roam freely, what happens to the passenger? Who's the passenger?
Soul.
Us. We are the passenger on this chariot. So with the roaming of the senses, one finds great difficulty in maintaining intelligence of what to do, of maintaining the direction of that chariot. So we've been talking all along in this chapter that the key theme of this section again is, what's the key theme of this section? Controlling the senses, which does not mean
Stopping.
can you stop the senses? Maybe very temporarily, right? But it's very, we can say impossible, right? So Krishna said in the prior verse that one whose senses is not connected with the Supreme can neither have a transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be happiness without peace? So when the senses are not engaged with Krishna, there is no possibility of peace. Because the material allurements which attract the senses ultimately lead to unfulfillment. We are not satisfied. And when we're not satisfied, you are not
Happy.
peaceful. And when you're not peaceful, you're not happy. We want satisfaction. So, Krishna is telling us the only way to find this happiness, to control those senses, is to engage them all in Krishna. 360 degrees. So he said in the next verse, therefore, O mighty Arjuna, one whose senses are restrained from their objects is certainly a steady intelligence. What does steady intelligence mean in practical terms? Constant. Yeah.
Not all over the place.
Not all over the place. Yeah.
Focusing on
Focusing.
And being calm.
Being calm. Any other? What is a result of steady intelligence? Well, we know happiness.
Peace.
Peace. We make good decisions, right? How many good decisions have we made when we were agitated? Zero, right? We don't make good decisions. But when we have steady intelligence, it means we allow the intelligence to speak. And we're going to talk about that today. How to let the intelligence speak and not let the mind speak. Because the mind speaks a lot. But one of steady intelligence is always in control of the mind. Right? The driver, when he's in control of the ropes, has control then of the chariot and the destination of the passenger, us, the spirit soul. But when the intelligence loses control of the mind or the ropes, what is our destination? The ditch.
Jail.
The jail, yes. Overcome by lust will do anything, even stealing. How many people are put in jail every day? They're just driven by lust. They're breaking passion. They're not really evilly rooted people. They're just overcome by lust. And thus the intelligence to discriminate right from wrong is overrun by the senses and the mind. Anybody has had that experience themselves? Where we knew I should not do this, but we still did it? Nobody? Okay, just me. Now everybody's both hands are up. Haribol! Right? Well, that's what this is. This is but a stage of steady intelligence has the senses fully controlled. Right? So now, let's see this very nice verse. Verse 69. Anybody heard the saying, the night and day difference?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to speculate. Please hear, this is my speculation. That night and day saying came from this verse. Let's see. This is 5,000 years old, so maybe it came from here. Somebody wants to read the verse?
What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-control, and the time of awakening for all beings is the night for the introspective sage. Purport. There are two classes of intelligent men. One is intelligent in material activities for sense gratification, and other is introspective and awake to cultivation of self-realization. Activities of the introspective sage or thoughtful man are night for persons materially absorbed. Materialistic person remains asleep in such a night due to the ignorance of self-realization. Introspective sage remains alert in the night of the materialistic man. The sage feels transcendental pleasure in the gradual advancement of spiritual culture, whereas the man in materialistic activities, being asleep to self-realization, dream of varieties of sense pleasure, feeling sometimes happy and sometimes distressed in a sleeping condition. The introspective man is always indifferent to materialistic happiness and distress. He goes on with his self-realization activities undisturbed by material reactions.
How many of us would like to be equally peaceful in happiness and distress? Consider that to be a very powerful quality. That is what one who has controlled the senses and engaged the senses properly achieves. Okay? So let's see. What are the two classes of intelligent man? What are the two classes of intelligent people?
Intelligent in materialistic activities, and the other is introspective.
So who is intelligent in material activities?
Engaging in self-gratification all the time.
The PhDs, those who have very high degrees, great knowledge of some field, they're experts in their field, whatever it may be. So we can say they're very intelligent. The human species of life is very intelligent relative to all other species of life. So that is intelligence in the field of material activities. And what is the second class of intelligence?
Understanding the self-realization.
Intelligence in the process of self-realization, or the cultivation of self-realization. Cultivate means to bring about. Right? I cultivate the fields to bring out some crops. So cultivating self-realization. So it takes great intelligence to do that. I must know who I am, who is Krishna, how is the process, study of Shastra, to understand how to process that. So both are levels of intelligence. Right? But it's compared in this verse to night and day. Meaning, they are very different. Opposites. The materialists and the spiritualists are going in opposite directions. Completely opposite directions. Right? So, what does it mean that activities of the introspective stage, I'm now in the third sentence, or thoughtful man, are night for the persons materially absorbed? What does that mean?
They have completely opposite likes and dislikes.
Okay, opposite likes and dislikes. Yeah. Why is Krishna using the word night? He's kind of making a nice
ignorance
metaphor.
They going to the pubs and bars and all movies in the night, the materialistic people, and whereas the introspective, they would kind of sleep in early and get up early.
Yeah, you can, to some degree, you can see that. That's a nice. What?
Misinformed, or they don't have like knowledge.
What does it mean to be asleep? Right. So Prabhupada is saying, "Are night for the persons materially absorbed." At night, what we sleep, right?
mode of ignorance.
Yeah, mode of ignorance. Unconscious.
Of course.
Unconscious or
Unaware.
to what? Unaware. Who said that? You're unaware? Unaware.
Nice.
Unaware to what?
Unaware of the reality of the life.
To the reality of life. So the materialist, when the spiritualist is practicing the introspective process of, introspective means to look within, to find the self within and find that happiness from within, meaning knowing I am eternal servant of Krishna. So whether it is night or day, can I be happy? Yes. If it's raining or sunny, if the stock market is up or the stock market is down, those things don't affect my happiness, because my happiness is from within, from the connection of my soul to Krishna. But the materialist, I'll come back to this night issue because I'm going to move on to a separate point. The materialist, what is their state of being? Prabhupada explains at the end of the purport.
Being asleep.
Sometimes they are what and sometimes they are what?
Sometimes happy, sometimes distressed.
Sometimes happy and sometimes distressed. That is the state of the materialist. Sometimes we are happy and sometimes we are not. That means I am attached to matter. But what is the position of the introspective sage? Undisturbed by material reactions. Doesn't matter what happens. Somebody calls me beautiful or ugly. Undisturbed. Sun or rain. Undisturbed. I have lots of money to live or very meager means. Undisturbed. So the introspective sage finds happiness separate from any material reaction. Right? So the materialist, being asleep to self-realization, dreams of a varieties of sense pleasures. That's what Prabhupada is saying here. Right? So the materialist is trying to find happiness from this ever-changing world. It is a shashvatam, temporary. Means it's in a constant mode of change. Nothing is eternal. It's one of the sayings in Michigan. If you don't like the weather, just wait. It'll change. Because everything changes. So the materialists, when they have some happiness, they're lamenting because they know it's going to change. It's going to, again, dissipate. But the introspective sage finds constant happiness from knowing the self. So two classes of intelligent person. One who tries to find happiness within the ever-changing, temporary world, which is known as dukhalayam, full of misery. Or the introspective sage who is finding happiness from its eternal, unchanging relationship with Krishna. So who has the better result? The billionaire or the introspective sage? The world famous actress or actor or the introspective sage? The most powerful ruler of the world or the introspective sage? Who has the better outcome? Defined by what? How can you say?
The length of their happiness.
Yeah, the type of happiness they have. The introspective sage has eternal, unlimited, and never-ending. Prabhupada says, a gradual increase. Advancement of spiritual culture. It feels pleasure as one continues the process of self-realization. It's beautiful. Right? So these are the opposing forces. One is going in one direction, the other is going in the other direction. They are completely opposite. Right? Both may be carrying briefcases going to the office, but the goals, completely different. The goal of the spiritualist is to
serve the Lord.
To serve the Lord. To please Krishna. To awaken self-realization. And what is the goal of the materialist?
Get more stuff.
Get more stuff. Please your own senses. Either you can please Krishna's senses or you can please your own. Only two options. Every day that alarm goes off, you step out of bed. Two options. We don't really think about it, but we should. We should have like a sign. And this way is this way, this way. We have two options. Am I going to serve Krishna's senses or my own? The introspective sage, by serving Krishna's senses, finds undaunting, eternal, ever-increasing happiness. And the very, very intelligent The very, very intelligent materialist. So this isn't, oh, well, the materialist isn't finding happiness because they're not so smart. They haven't figured out how to manipulate matter so nicely. But let modern advancement continue and then they'll find. No. This is the most intelligent materialist. They find the same result. Ups and downs, the roller coaster of life. And it's undaunting. Right? So now back to this night and day. What does it mean that, again, the materialists are asleep to the activities of the spiritualist? What are the activities of the spiritualist? The introspective stage.
To serve Krishna.
Serve Krishna. And what are some of the examples in which they serve Krishna? Chanting.
Offering bhoga.
Offering foods to Krishna. Coming to Bhaktivedanta. ABCDs. Reading. Going to the temple. But to the materialist, how is that night? They have no interest. They are asleep to those activities. When we're asleep, we're inactive. Right? So those activities, the materialists don't do. They're asleep to those activities. And now Prabhupada says in the purport, or Krishna is also saying, that the spiritualist is asleep to the activities of the materialist. What are the activities of the materialists?
Buying more stuff.
Buying more stuff.
Figuring out how to buy more stuff.
Figuring out how to buy more stuff.
Fulfilling their sense gratification.
Fulfilling their sense gratification. How? What are some different ways? Shopping. Shopping. Somerset Mall. We're right at the base of the shopping mecca. Right? What other things do materialists do?
Going on a cruise.
Going on a cruise.
Holiday.
Well, that does sound nice.
What else? Gambling, going to big parties, cocktail reception. That's the life and soul of the materialist, right? But for the introspective sage, what do they do in those activities? Do they have any interest? They are asleep. So do you see that they are polar opposites, night and day difference? That both are asleep to each other's activities. Right? Both are asleep. What is night for all beings, when the materialists are not attending the Bhaktivedanta and the temples, that is a time of great bliss, time of awakening for the self-control. But in the bars and discos at late night, the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective stage. So it means that the activities are very, very different. And you can see some parallels in the way the clocks work. You know, the materialist in the mode of passion and ignorance will be partying in the evening and coming home at 2, 3, 4 a.m. And the spiritualists will be rising at 2 or 3, 4 a.m. and attending a Mangalarti and going through their day. And by 8 o'clock at night, they're ready to take rest. When the night is just beginning, so you can see they almost work on opposite clocks. Almost exactly opposite. But the point of this is that the activities of the materialist are very boring. Couldn't be more boring to the spiritualist. And likewise, the activities of the spiritualist are not interesting, very boring to the materialist. Why? Because they have completely opposite goals. They're going in different directions. So sometimes, when we begin to practice spiritual life, we find sometimes our friends, Dad, what are you doing? Why are you doing all this? They can't make sense of it. You've lost your mind. Right? Because the activities that they see interesting, you're sleeping to. You're not going. And the activities they find most boring, you are so enthusiastic for. You see? Complete opposite. Anybody's had that experience with their relationships? Yeah, we all have. Right? So that's natural. To each his own, we say. You know? If we shouldn't criticize or say, but why are you doing this? Because it makes me happy. Why are you going to the club? Because it makes you happy. I'm going to my club, the temple, because it makes me happy. You dance, we dance. You feast, we feast. You drink your nectar, we drink our nectar. Why? Because it makes me happy. Because it makes me happy. We propel by our search for happiness. So don't be disturbed that you're like, wow, I'm in the complete opposite. That is exactly because we're making a transition from one class of intelligence to a higher class of intelligence.
And it's really no one's business what makes you happy.
Exactly. No one can argue with that statement. And if I was talking to someone this weekend, I said, if your friends really respect you, they'll respect you for who you are, not what activities you do. That's the deeper level of friendship. And you can respect back, at least be not disrespectful to what they do. That's to each his own. But I'm doing it because I'm happy. Each is propelled by their sense of satisfaction. But who has real happiness? It's clear. The introspective sage has much more longevity in their happiness. Right? So now let's read the verse 70. This is one of my favorite verses in the Bhagavad Gita. Someone wants to read it?
A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires.
Wow. So let's read the purport. Srila Prabhupada has a nice purport here.
Although the vast ocean is always filled with water, it is always, especially during the rainy season, being filled with much more water. But the ocean remains the same, steady. It is not agitated, nor does it cross beyond the limit of its brink. That is also true of a person fixed in Krishna consciousness. As long as one has the material body, the demands for the body for sense gratification will continue. The devotee, however, is not disturbed by such desires because of his fullness. A Krishna conscious man is not in need of anything because the Lord fulfills all his material necessities. Therefore, he is like the ocean, always full in himself. Desires may come to him like the waters of the rivers that flow into the ocean, but he is steady in his activities, and he is not even slightly disturbed by desires for sense gratification. That is the proof of a Krishna conscious man, one who has lost all inclinations for material sense gratification, although the desires are present. Because he remains satisfied in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he can remain steady, like the ocean, and therefore enjoy full peace. Others, however, who want to fulfill desires even up to the limit of liberation, what to speak of material success, never attain peace. The fruitive workers, the salvationists, and also the yogis who are after mystic powers are all unhappy because of unfulfilled desires. But the person in Krishna consciousness is happy in the service of the Lord, and he has no desires to be fulfilled. In fact, he does not even desire liberation from the so-called material bondage. The devotees of Krishna have no material desires, and therefore they are in perfect peace.
So this is a very beautiful metaphor that Krishna is using. Very, very beautiful metaphor. And very powerful for us because sometimes we struggle with this. But So a person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires. Remember, Krishna is explaining this, what a transcendentally situated person does. So this is what the person does. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but always still, can alone achieve peace. Not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. So what is the river in this metaphor?
Flow.
Desires.
I thought it was interesting that he said they're always present.
They're always present.
But that's true.
Yeah, desires are present. Now, what happens when the river flows into the ocean? What happens to the ocean?
Nothing.
Nothing. It's
Unaffected.
undisturbed. Is the ocean disturbed also if the river stops flowing into the ocean? It's indifferent. Meaning, there or not there, it doesn't matter. Right? So, what is this trying to explain? How does this relate now to the transcendentalist?
You're not disturbed by desires.
Not disturbed. Why is the transcendentalist not disturbed by the river of desires?
They're not attached.
They are fixed in
No
Krishna consciousness.
expectations.
They're not attached.
Fixed in Krishna consciousness.
They're fixed in Krishna. But
They're
why are
not
they?
dependent.
He's so.
What?
They're not dependent.
So using this analogy, the ocean, does it require the river to flow into it? Meaning the ocean is going to be
Independent.
full. Right? So now, why is the transcendentalist unattached to the river of desires?
It's already
They have
full.
Self-realized.
It has reached its ultimate for the desire what it
They
wants.
got the higher taste
So they-
of life. So
Because the ocean's already full.
The ocean's already full of, what is the transcendentalist already full of?
desire to serve Krishna.
So
Happiness. The transcendental has full happiness. What are desires? Means to get happiness, right? If I'm totally full and you bring another plate of cookies, I don't want them. I'm undisturbed by the temptation of cookies because I'm full. I have no temptation from it. Now, if I bring a plate of cookies, we'll all be disturbed because we have some hunger. So how is the transcendentalist full?
by doing
It's already
But how? Yeah,
with Krishna.
with Krishna. By its Krishna consciousness, one achieves unlimited happiness. Unlimited. We can't even contemplate unlimited. We don't know what that means because everything we see is limited. But a Krishna conscious person has unlimited happiness. So then when a desire comes for some material sense enjoyment, it doesn't even register. It doesn't even get acknowledged. Why? Because already satisfied, already fully complete. We are only satisfied when we have everything we want. Have you found a single person,
No.
minus a spiritualist, who is fully satisfied?
No one's satisfied. No one's satisfied with anything.
No.
Nobody.
And there's a reason. Because greed can never be satisfied.
And the people who have more stuff are more unhappy.
The more you get, the more you struggle. Material greed will never be satisfied. But the transcendentalist is fully satisfied. The introspective sage is like the ocean. It has its water. It doesn't need the river. The rivers flow. So the instructive application for us is what to do when the mind is churning through all of these different ideas and thoughts. What does the transcendentalist, does the transcendentalist have some of these desires? Prabhupada says, although the desires are present, they're there. But what does the transcendentalist do?
Not acknowledging.
Studying.
Remains indifferent.
Blah, 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 blah. Don't hear them. Don't listen to them. The desires are there. They're flowing. But the transcendentalist is undisturbed by them. Does not act upon them. Does not try to satisfy them. Krishna says, and the man who strives to satisfy the senses, to satisfy those desires, cannot achieve peace. Because when will be the end of satisfying those desires? Never. Bali Maharaj said, right? Greed can never be satisfied, so why ask for something? None of it is going to satisfy me. You can obtain the whole universe. Hiranyakashipu obtained the whole universe. Yet he was unsatisfied, angry, to the point he lost his everything. Because greed never is satisfied. But the spiritualist is satisfied with materially nothing. In full bliss and happiness. Like that ocean. Right? So the spiritualist full in its satisfaction from Krishna consciousness. When the mind says, neighbor has a BMW, why don't you have a BMW? Mind will speak that way. Well, how does the spiritualist respond?
I don't need a BMW.
I'm good. I have 2 feet. Krishna gave me. I'm good. When neighbor says, you're ugly, what does the spiritualist say?
So?
My soul is beautiful. I'm okay. All our bodies will be ugly in the next 100 years too. No problem. No problem. When the spiritualist loses all his money, what does he feel or she feel?
It's unaffected.
Krishna will protect me. We just read. Krishna is Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu. He is the ocean of mercy. He is the friend of the distressed. He'll take care of me. No problem. So when the material desires come, when one has become full in spiritual life, one loses all inclination to those desires. The desires may flow, the mind may still speak, but we must not listen to them. Don't worry that the desires are coming. More worry about whether we act on them or not. Don't try to stop the rivers from flowing. Don't try to stop those thoughts. Those have been built up for thousands of lifetimes. But what we can stop is don't act on them. If we are not yet fully satisfied in our Krishna consciousness, and we still have some lingering tastes of material life, know we are in the process of becoming the ocean. So have faith and say, no. Don't lament that the thought came. Lament if the action follows. Don't lament the thought. Lament the action. Let the thoughts flow. But be steady like an ocean. Undisturbed. Then you will find peace and success. So we can't control the thoughts of the mind, can we? But when that pizza is offered to us, knowing it contains things we should not eat, we can control. Thoughts will say, eat it. But we can say, intelligence. can say no. And even if there's some attachment, we're not yet fully experiencing the full satisfaction of Krishna, it will come. And so our faith in the strength to say no is built upon the fact that Krishna consciousness is an unlimited ocean of bliss. And material desires, all the material desires, if you took all the material happiness that exists in the whole universe, all the happiness combined, it compares to the amount of water contained in a hoof print of a calf. And we are in an ocean of spiritual bliss. So don't let those desires affect our activities. Don't lament that those desires are there. Oh, these desires keep coming and become. That's okay. Let them flow. Let them flow, flow, flow. But don't act on them. And then we'll be safe. No, don't lament the desires, lament the action. Make sense? Questions, comments?
Sounds easy, it's not.
So what's the easy way to do it?
I guess practice.
Practice. It's practice. It's our sadhana. It's our practice of bhakti. That's what's going to give us the strength. Anybody roller skate or ice skate? What happened the first time you ice skated? You fell. It hurts. It's painful. You can say miserable. But then the second, third, fourth, eventually, very nice. So we're not good at anything initially. If I say you can move like as you want on a piece of ice, you'll think it's impossible. If you're sitting on shoes and trying to move, you say it's impossible. But if I show, no, look at these skates with this little blade, you say, it's impossible to stand on these blades. You'll fall right over. And then you'll fall. It seems impossible because our experience has never got us to ice skate. We've never seen anyone ice skate. In this example. So the power of bhakti, bringing about this experience of full satisfaction, yeah, it seems difficult. It seems impossible. It seems fanciful. Because we haven't seen it. But as we begin to see it, begin to experience it ourselves, unfold the layers, it will happen. But we have to do it. We have to practice it. Who would have thought, whatever the date is today, and you rewind the clock back to when you started coming, you would have thought, I would actually enjoy reading scripture. Anyone would have thought that? You would have said? What word would you have used? What word? No? Impossible. His favorite word. He was impossible. I wouldn't enjoy it. No chance. Now there's something. You know, the diet. I remember some people addicted to flesh, meat. Says, I never can give that up. Impossible. And now, complete opposite, night and day. Intoxication. Whatever it is. I can never go to the temple. Oh, it's so boring. And now, it's possible. Right? So it happens. But we have to practice. We have to practice diligently. Nothing we've accomplished happens without diligent practice.
Or it comes easy. Nothing comes easy.
Nothing comes easy. But controlling the senses becomes easy when we engage them in Krishna consciousness. You have a question?
Prabhupada's one purport line, Prabhu. He says even the devotees are not free from flow of desires, right? So, which means flow of desires is common for any person, but only thing you should not act on them. I think that's what he meant.
Yeah, exactly. Don't act on them. But the devotee, those desires don't even register. So for the devotee, it's not even difficult to nothing. So for the devotee, it's not difficult to ignore. We have to stay steadfast. No, I won't act on them. But for the pure devotee, when those desires come, Prabhupada says, right, there's no inclination, one who has lost all inclinations for material sense gratification. That is the proof of a devotee. The proof of a devotee is not how nice their dhoti looks, or their tilak is, or how many verses they know. That's not the proof of a devotee. The proof of a devotee is one who has lost all inclinations for material desires. Because Krishna said in the very beginning, the first answer to Arjuna's question, the symptom, the characteristic was Tita Pragna. No sense, no material attachments. Right? So the devotee, the desires may come, but there's no inclination for them. For us, there may be. You want to hear one extreme statement? Not extreme statement, but it's an interesting statement. Prabhupada, when he came to the US, I think it was in the US, he said, someone asked him, perform a miracle. What miracle can you perform? And Prabhupada knew how to answer questions, sometimes based on the source of the recipient. And he says, the miracle I can perform is I can be in a room full of naked people and would not be disturbed. So fully unattached to the body. And that reporter was like struck how to respond to that. But his point was so deep that there's no inclination. We would be completely lost. But a pure devotee, the desires are flowing, but no inclination. Because they're full in something else. Just like if the sun is out, and then I bring my little flashlight from my phone, does it do anything?
No.
Doesn't do anything. In the midst of Krishna consciousness, even billions of dollars in fame and beauty, doesn't even register. Like this flashlight doesn't register in the daylight. That's how vast the difference is between bhakti rasa and mundane rasa. Rivers and oceans. Understood. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
I think I just recalled reading something about the same kind of incident. I think you might already know about it. Prabhupada, once one of the devotees took him to lecture in some place in California, and he was not told what the venue is. Then later on he figured out that it was amongst hippies who were like naked, and Prabhupada was like singing, and when he opened his eyes he could see all the people sitting in front of him. Yeah. And then he actually very beautifully he explained Krishna consciousness to them, just in language which they would understand. So
it was a nudist colony, and there were hippies, and one of the pillars of ISKCON society came from that meeting, and he became one of the most staunch devotees in the history of ISKCON.
A nudist?
He was so lost, but he had no idea, and he became so full in Krishna consciousness. It shows how powerful bhakti is. We may be in the most degraded of mindset, most lost in intelligence, yet by the power of chanting the holy names and the mercy of a pure devotee, Amazing. Any questions, comments?
So Prabhu, sometimes like with these knowledge, right? It's kind of wondering that there are people who are talking about this self-realization because this is a very buzzword in recent days, right? But without any spiritual discussion, but they talk about self-realization. So how to see that,
What are they realizing about the self? Self-realization is to realize the self. What do they realize? Right?
Maybe like to them it's more like meditation and seeing something in meditation is maybe to them is.
They say inner engineering.
Yeah, but I can say, to me, going to the gym is watching a sporting event and exercise. I can say that it is, but is it? They're two different things. Playing the activity versus watching the activity. So I can say whatever I want. That's my free will. But what is self-realization? Krishna has described. What is self-realization? It is to understand the self in relation with everything. And there's only one process to realize the self. And ultimately that is bhakti. The jnanis can realize spirit from matter. But that's not full realization. That's partial realization. Full realization means to know Krishna as the Supreme Spirit, as the source of the self. Where I come from, and you have a clear understanding of what your function is, okay. The kids who performed the Bhagavad Gita competition last week, from age 3, 4, 5, they can realize who they are. Now these great inner engineering mystics and transcendentalists and mentalists, whatever we want to do, how clear understanding do they have of who they are? Do they have any clarity? Because your knowledge is coming from Shastra, which means it's coming from Krishna, your source. Their knowledge is coming from human, some person.
They may be better than materialistic person, but they are not complete.
How are they better than materialistic person? How? One who claims to have knowledge and misleads other in the process of self-realization is considered more fallen than one who themselves engages in sense gratification. Because at least one buries themselves alone, and in the other they bury all others with them. It's compared to a cobra with a jewel on it. A cobra bedecked with a jewel looks very fancy, but it's most dangerous because we try to go see the jewel. So those with so-called knowledge are more dangerous and more fallen. This is explained in Sri Upanishad. More dangerous. Because they can mislead others. It's okay you mislead yourself. That's your choice. But don't purport to have knowledge and become a danger to others. So it is not better than materialists. They may be innocently confused, and you can begin to explain them. Be sober. This soul is who you are. Who is the soul? Ham bija pradaha pita. Krishna is your seed-giving father. Have him read chapter 13. Understand the different elements. So there's only one path to self-realization ultimately. I can speak I'm doing self-realization, but that has to come from Shastra. It has to come from Shastra. That's why we don't bother with it. There's no point to discuss, because it's a matter of one's opinion and one will matter of free will to follow it. Great. Good luck to you. I'm going to follow what Krishna says, not what somebody thinks. If you have intelligence, that's what you'll do. But again, that's our choice.
So being a materialistic, unspiritualistic is not possible, Prabhu, or that is also possible.
You can be in day and night at the same time. Right? The point I think you're making, which is there's a transition. As we are lessening our material desires, we're increasing our spiritual desires, right?
In the evening.
Correct.
But that has to be happening. Not, I'm going to balance both. Balance.
Yeah.
This idea of balance.
Right.
How do I compare balance to? One foot in one boat and another foot in another boat. Where do you end up? In the water. And you're neither enjoying material boat or spiritual boat.
You're grounding.
It's not balanced. The point is, am I working to lessen my material desires? Obviously, you're not going to, after one session, 10 sessions, couple rounds, have no material desires. But the consciousness should be, I know this is wrong or not good for me, but I can't, I'm not there yet. Let me work on it. Right? So that's the idea of, and that's when we'll become pure in our devotion. So we're in a practice, we're working towards that. Okay? So if you have material desires, no problem. What to do with those desires? Don't act on them. Don't act on them. Don't lament the desire. Lament if you act on them. Just don't act on them.
Engage
And if you act on them, don't do it next time. Right? Don't do it next time. And if you do it next time, don't do it. Just work on it. Right? Work on it. And the only way to become free from material desires is to become full in something else. So when you feel very, full of material desires, I am having these desires, what should you do? Double down on your bhakti. Go to the temple. Chant one extra round. Read. Promise you. When you become like, oh my God, what's happened to me? I'm like, you know you don't want it, but you can't let go. Add more bhakti. Like in practically, go render some service. Go out and distribute a book. And you'll see, oh my God, that desire went away. It's gone. So when they're going to come, and when they'll come, it'll be intense, right? Fight the urge, and do more service, more bhakti, chant, read, do something, and that desire will dissipate, and ultimately Krishna will help us purify from those desires.
That is true, Prabhu. I think every day 3 to 4 hours, if you spend on this, I think whatever you're seeing will happen, because that 3 to 4 hours only we waste every day.
The morning, Prabhupada established 24/7 we can be engaged. If you go through your japa, you chant your 16 rounds in the morning, you read some Bhagavad Gita, you'll take up all your other nonsense time.
Correct.
Then you'll do your work, your household activities,
those
and
things
responsibilities that we have to do.
Yeah.
Rest, eat, all that things we have to do. But we'll minimize the other activities by doing that. So idle mind is the devil's workshop. Don't idle.
Correct.
As soon as we sit idle,
Yeah.
that river is flowing, raging. Right? So just be like the ocean. And if you're not yet feeling the ocean, don't worry. Think I am going to become but just don't act on it. Don't worry about the desires. And if you act on it, work on it, it will happen. Pray to Krishna. When we chant, we should pray to Krishna. Don't just chant mechanically. Pray, Krishna, I am addicted to hearing about politics. Please. I know it's silly, but I think it's beautiful. Please help me get over this. Krishna, I am addicted to this or that or whatever it may be. Own up to him. Pray to Krishna. He can help us unlock our hold on them. If we ask him to, he will. Of course he will. He wants us to. But he wants us to. He doesn't want to force us to. So pray to him, whatever attachments you have. And he will help you get over them.
Like also, Bruce, this is just a comment. Like, I think this knowledge is passed only through ISKCON, because me coming from South India, many temples, bhakti is there. Like in one of our other lectures, so bhakti is there within the people, but this kind of
Proper Shastra.
knowledge is what is
Discipling
It's shared among the Brahmins, but it's not been told to others.
to others.
no, it's even like Brahmins don't know.
That
Yeah.
compassionate
Maybe
mood is not there.
Because like I come from a Brahmin
Not
family,
in-
and
not
or even
in
my
the
dad
generation.
comes, and now my grandfather comes. Like nobody has given this knowledge, right?
And that's why I remember, bhakti means to know, to render loving service to Krishna. That's bhakti. Bhakti is loving service to Krishna. Yoginam api sarvesham madgate nantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam samyami. Krishna explains at the end of all the yoga systems. He says, now this bhakta is highest of all. And then he explains bhakti in the 9th chapter. Manmana bhavad mad bhakto majani mam namaskuru. One who thinks of me, who offers obeisances to me, who becomes my devotee, and who offers homages to me. That is what my devotee does. So one who is practicing bhakti, we see by the activities, not by birth, not by geography, not by whether they're living in the penthouse in Manhattan or they're living in the temple. The bhakti can be living in the penthouse in Manhattan too. Or you can be living in the temple and not have any bhakti. Bhakti is love of Krishna.
And he has to be compassionate to others also, Prabhu. Then only...
How you can have love of Krishna without being compassionate to all?
That was his point, Prabhu.
How you can be loving Krishna? If you love Krishna, you must love all his children.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it like that.
That is what he is making the point, I think.
Right? If you love Krishna, you have to love all his children.
Yeah.
Because you see Krishna sitting in the hearts of all other people
Right.
as Paramatma. So, bhakti is exclusively this.
Yeah.
Not defined by you, not defined by me, not defined by where we come from.
To include.
Defined by Krishna.
And it is all inclusive.
How one of Krishna's children is not qualified to love him? Bhakti is love. Now, how one of your children you'll allow to love and another one you will not? No father would do that. No mother would do that. Why would Krishna do that? Nobody is precluded. That's why Krishna says in the 9th chapter, even a dog eater can become my devotee. Why? Patram pushpam phalam toyam. That's it. To be my devotee, all you have to do,
Offer.
leaf, fruit, flower, water, but yome bhaktya prayachiti, with bhakti, with love. So the Brahmanas in India, They want a monopoly on bhakti to enhance their business. And that is what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur smashed ferociously. That's why he was called the Simha Guru, Lion Guru, because he was ferocious in smashing this concept. So ferocious was he that the Brahmanas tried to kill him twice. Twice they tried to kill him. Because he was smashing the monopoly of bhakti. Nobody can own bhakti. Nobody can. Neither can we. We cannot say we're the only ones who do bhakti either. No. But we can say Srila Prabhupada, through his books, is giving so much knowledge of exacting detail how to practice bhakti. That no one else gives. That is a fact. Nobody gives the extensive detail of how to practice it. But there are many other sampradayas who practice bhakti. So we should not, but the unique thing coming in Srila Prabhupada's line is because it's empowered by Krishna himself as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya is empowered by Krishna in the mood of a devotee. So becoming a devotee, Krishna has shown that path. And that is the special potency. And why it's so fulfilling. So our path to the impossible is much faster here. Because the precise is given. All we have to do is follow. Are we ready to follow it?
Try.
Arjuna at the end of Bhagavad Gita says, Karishye vachanam tava. I am ready to follow. You can hear every discussion, everything there is to know. But if the heart doesn't open up to this consciousness, then I am ready to follow. It's not going to work. Arjuna heard the Bhagavad Gita in 2 hours. How many hours it's taking us? So let us begin to follow today. Even if we don't have yet full faith, just know it's going to happen. Chant your rounds nicely. Chant them with sincerity. Chant them consistently. Chant them with clarity. Just chant your rounds nicely. Everything else will take care of itself. If you take nothing else away, just chant. Just chant. Everything else will come in line. The more and better we chant our rounds. If we're only going to follow one instruction, that is the only one. Just chant. Any other questions, comments? Everybody's sufficiently scared now. So Sunday, we have this very, very auspicious Gita Jayanti celebration. So we'll be reciting all 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita. There will be a big yajna. Everyone can offer grains after each verse. And very important celebration. Why does it say 4:30 in other words? Please arrive by 4 o'clock. It's going to start sharp at 4 o'clock because we have to get through all 700 verses. I should not say 4:30. So, please come. It's a very spectacular experience to hear all the verses being recited in the association of devotees with the fire sacrifice and the offering of grains. And then the most important part of this Bhagavad Gita recitation, Kaushik Prabhu is a step ahead of all of you because he took his case of Bhagavad Gita last week. But what everyone become inspired to share this knowledge. You want one inspiration to share this knowledge? Can I just read one quick verse? Sorry to take up your extra time, but please.
16.
Krishna says at the end of this is Krishna speaking. For one who explains this supreme secret to the devotees, pure devotional service is guaranteed. And at the end, he will come back to me. And then he says, there is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. This is the potency of giving this Bhagavad Gita to somebody. Krishna says, no one will be more dear to me, nor can there ever be one more dear than one who shares this knowledge with someone. Even if they're not ready to read it, just let it stay on the bookshelf. But there is value in it. Okay? So Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Nata Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Chant now.